Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's session on optimizing digestion. So we might think in almost all our traditions, whether it is the Hippocrates or Socrates, and when we look at Ayurveda and when we look at Chinese medicine, all of them have told that the gut is the most important in health. But in modern medicine, we never really understood the importance until we discovered microbiome. But today we are able to really make sense of what the traditional healers or the traditional medical sciences were, why they were calling the digestion or the gut as the most important organ for health. So in your lifetime, about 170,000 pounds of food is processed by your gut. So that's the amount of food which is going from an external environment into your system. And it's not like skin where skin is impermeable to most of the things, but the gut has to differentiate what is important for it, and it has to take in only what is important for the gut. So it has to be permeable to what is important and impermeable to what is not important. And that's about 170,000 pounds of matter going in. And it actually has more nerve endings than the brain. This is also something we have realized in the last 5-10 years. We always thought the vagus nerve, which carries the signals from the brain to the gut, is only an afferent nerve, that it only mainly carries signals from the brain. But now we have understood that there are more nerve signals going from the gut to the brain in through the vagus itself than the signals coming in. So the gut itself has a brain of its own, and it is an ecosystem of its own. And you know that inside the intestines, there's an Amazon forest also, the microbiome. And the digestive system is what breaks down the food and absorbs the nutrition. And if that doesn't happen, then there's no point in eating healthy and taking digestive enzymes, or sorry, taking nutritional supplements. So whatever you're trying to do for your health and whatever you're trying to eat has to be digested and get absorbed. Only then it starts having an impact on your body. So first of all, I would like to break up the digestive system and tell you different parts of it so that you understand why we are trying to optimize it. So the first part of the digestion actually starts off in the brain itself. So any senses picking up and stimulating your brain for food can actually stimulate your nerves to secrete some gastric acid. So that is why after breakfast, when your lunchtime is approaching, if there is no thought of food, if there's no sign of food, then you can still stay comfortably. But if you in the office, if somebody else opens their lunchbox and you get the smell of the food, then you start getting more hungry. That's because 20%, 10 to 20% of the hydrochloric acid actually gets secreted before you start eating, only through the senses of food. It can be smell, it can be the sight, and sometimes it can be the thought of food also. So that is why it's very important to relax the body and before we start. So another very important thing we need to understand is our digestive system is mainly supplied by the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is a parasympathetic nerve, which so we have two types of nervous systems in the body, which controls the things which we don't have voluntary control. Muscles, we have voluntary control, but the internal organs, we don't have a voluntary control. So the nervous system which takes care of all this is called the autonomic nervous system. And now the autonomic nervous system is divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic. And sympathetic is when which becomes active when you are in a stressful state. It helps you in the fight or flight response. So when you look at a tiger, you either get agitated and you start fighting, or you feel scared and you run away from it. So this is the elementary response which the sympathetic nervous system gives. But what's happened is, when we are always in stress, the sympathetic nervous system is always active and it's suppressing the parasympathetic nervous system. So that is why when you are eating while you're traveling, like many people today morning, I had a consultation of an engineer who works in a software company. He said every day he has breakfast when he in the car when he's traveling to the office. So there is absolutely no time given for his parasympathetic nervous system to calm down. And this person has been having IBS since 5 years, tried all kinds of medicine. So when we don't give adequate time for the system to relax and sit down and have food, and we are always reducing the blood supply which is going to the digestive system, and also the nervous system also is not able to focus on the digestive system. So this, you might feel it's so simple and it's so obvious that obviously we have to chew our food, but most of us don't do it properly. And the second part of the digestion actually starts in the mouth itself, because there is an important enzyme called the salivary amylase in our saliva. So if that doesn't do its job properly, then we will have a tough time breaking down complex carbohydrates lower down. And then we end up getting bloated and we get a lot of gas. So when we chew our food properly, so with all the other types of food, the mechanical breakdown of the food itself helps to simplify the digestion. So when you break down the food into a paste and then you swallow, surface area of that food increases and there's more opportunity for digestive enzymes to function. And also, if you see whatever you eat, even if it is not very sweet, if you keep the food in the mouth for a while, the saliva acts on the food, and you in the end you notice that there is a little sweet taste, because the saliva itself is able to break down the complex carbs. So that is how powerful the saliva is. And also another 10 to 15% of the hydrochloric acid secretion is stimulated by the salivary amylase. Once the salivary amylase starts increasing, then your hydrochloric acid also gets stimulated and starts functioning. So the third part of the digestion is the stomach. So the most important enzyme in the stomach is the hydrochloric acid, but we also have pepsin, which helps digest protein. So once the food enters the stomach and the stomach starts distending, the mechanical distension along with some receptor stimulation in the stomach will stimulate the production of the digestive enzymes. So predominantly it's the pepsin and the hydrochloric acid, but also the gastrin gets stimulated. And once the hydrochloric acid and pepsin gets into the stomach and starts digesting the carbs and the proteins, then the bile acid release from the gallbladder is also stimulated because of this. And this hydrochloric acid also is the trigger for the pancreatic secretions to start functioning better. So if the stomach acid is not able to or you're suppressing the stomach acid, then the bile stimulation also reduces and the pancreatic stimulation also reduces. So the entire digestive capacity will reduce. And another problem with, so in the stomach, the food has to stay for about 2 hours. And that is when the complex protein and carbohydrates are all broken down. So if this doesn't happen properly and there's not enough enzymes to act here, then the pancreatic enzymes, intestinal enzymes, and the bile acid will not be able to do the job. So when the food gets into your initial part of the intestine, then you start getting undigested food that creates disturbance in the intestines, and then that creates excess gas production. And the gas comes back to the stomach and you end up burping. So many times when people complain of reflux, burping, we end up giving the same medicine like a gastritis. So gastritis is actually the inflammation of the stomach. But burping and reflux, when it's not associated with pain, is actually because we are not digesting properly. And we need to actually stimulate our intestines to function better, stimulate our acid to secretion to happen better instead of suppressing the acid. So the next phase after the stomach is the pancreas. So pancreas has two functions. It has an endocrine function and an exocrine function. Endocrine function is when the hormones gets released into the bloodstream. So insulin is also secreted in the pancreas. Exocrine function is when the enzymes get secreted into the intestines. So protein and carbohydrates are the main digestive components of the pancreas, and it also is very alkaline. So the pH of in the stomach is about 2 to 4. It's very acidic, and has it comes down. Only the stomach has the capacity to have such an acidic fluid. As it comes down, it has to become a little alkaline, and pancreas is responsible for that. So the next phase is the gallbladder. So gallbladder doesn't actually secrete bile, but it stores the bile. So liver constantly keeps secreting bile because liver is a organ of detoxification. So the bile is continuously secreted throughout the day. In the night, it may reduce, but throughout the day, it's constantly secreting and it keeps coming down. But because the connection from the liver to the intestines is closed when you don't have food, the bile gets collected into the gallbladder. In the gallbladder, the bile becomes thicker and the excess water content is all absorbed in the gallbladder. So when the gallbladder function is not doing well, then there is a problem with the thickness of the bile fluid. And when there is disturbance in the ratio of the cholesterol and bile acids and bile salts, then you'd end up developing gallstones. And also the trigger for cholecystokinin is the hormone which is responsible for the gallbladder to contract. And the trigger for cholecystokinin is again the stomach acid. So you can see that the entire digestive system is interconnected. So if you suppress one component, everything else gets suppressed. So the function of the bile is it emulsifies fats so that the fat can be digested easily and also absorbed easily. So most of the bile is actually reabsorbed into our system. So that is why many times when we are detoxifying, if we don't, many toxins can get reabsorbed in the intestines and go back into the circulation. So that is why we add specific binders so that the binders can bind to the toxins and get it out of the system. So to make it very simple, the simple things you can do to optimize your digestion is chew your food properly and mindfully eat, and you should not be drinking a lot of water when you eat, because once, like I said, the pH of the stomach has to be between 2 and 4. So the stomach acid is trying to get acidic environment in the stomach for proper digestion. So once you drink a lot of water, it dilutes the environment and it increases the pH, and the digestive enzymes are not able to do its job. So that is why about 20 minutes before the food, 20 to 30 minutes, you should finish drinking water. And after you eat, you should not be drinking water for about half an hour, 1.5 to 2 hours after you eat. And it's very important to eat in a relaxed environment for your parasympathetic nervous system to start functioning. And we should always start our meal with fresh fiber. Metabolic reason for starting the meal with fresh fiber is because it will decrease the insulin effect, and it will provide so if you eat sweets, for example, first, what happens is it will if it gets out of the stomach and into the duodenum, it immediately gets absorbed and your insulin will spike up. And once the insulin gets your blood sugar low, then you start feeling sleepy and drowsy after the meal. So that is why 1 hour after the meal you become little drowsy. But if you have a fiber first, then the sudden absorption of glucose doesn't happen. And the glucose is gradually absorbing through your bloodstream, and the insulin is also slowly spiking up. And only there won't be any sudden drop in blood sugar when the insulin is slowly spiking up. So again, this may seem a very simple thing to do, but I can't stress more on this, because this itself can be a curative treatment for some of the IBS patients, because we're so used to this fast lifestyle and always working and always being stressful. We never pay attention to what we're eating. So taking the time to eat will not just stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, but also it will relax your body. It will bring in more awareness to yourself and your senses. And it will also bring in more awareness to your symptoms of how your body is taking in the food and how your body is reacting to the food. So first thing, mindfulness can start with the food preparation itself. If you are preparing your own food, you have to pay attention to the sights and the smell and the texture and the feeling of the food when you're eating. And even if you're not preparing while you're eating, you can pay attention to all that. That itself is like a meditation and a relaxation technique. So like I mentioned before, it is very important to create an ideal calm environment before you start eating. Driving and eating, or working on a computer and eating, and talking to others and eating, or making intensive conversations while eating, all that will suppress your parasympathetic nervous system. And almost in all the cultures, whether it's Christianity or Islam or Hinduism or Jainism or Sikhism, every culture gives importance to praying before eating, because the sense of gratitude itself is a very calming process, and the sense of gratitude itself is a parasympathetic stimulative process. So that itself will reduce the sympathetic nervous system, and it will stimulate your nerves to function better. And another thing what is happening in our today's world is we are paying so much of attention to the calories and to carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, and we're not paying attention to the other nutrients in the vegetables, the phytonutrients. So different colors of the vegetable can signify the presence of different nutrients, especially the phytonutrients, which may not be as important for our body as much as vitamin minerals, but it feeds the microbiome, and it also helps us in various enzymatic actions and cellular actions. So it is very important to have a variety of vegetables and fruits and all colors of vegetables, because it not just brings in the phytonutrient, but also brings in the variety of microbes. So different microbes feed on different phytonutrients. So the variety and diversity of the microbes will develop when we eat a lot of variety in vegetables. And it has to be seasonal, of course. Another important aspect of eating mindfulness is eating with others, eating with family. And this also is not just helping you develop that inner circle, but also it will not distract you, and it will make you more mindful of the food when you're with others. And of course, I mentioned that we have to have a lot of variety in flavor, because the herbs itself can stimulate digestive enzymes. So many of the digestive problems in the traditional medicines are cured by simple herbs which are used for cooking. That is because it not only acts to stimulate digestive enzymes and stimulate the digestive juices, but also herbs can be have antimicrobial properties, and it can have an impact on the microbiome in a good way, because it can suppress the harmful bacteria also. And this is just a revision of the importance of chewing and listening to your body while eating. So another tip is is while coming to passing stools. So while passing stools, it has to our Indian way of passing stools. The Indian toilet is actually much better than the Western toilet, because when you squat, you actually there's an angle between when you are in a sitting position. There's a muscle around the rectum which is just above your anus, and that is pulled a little bit. But when you squat, that muscle relaxes and there's no angle between the rectum and the anus. Because of this muscle pulling that rectum and creating an angle between the muscle and the between the anus and the rectum, you can actually develop little constipation. But when you squat, the constipation will get relieved. So this especially is important when people have a huge sigmoid or a huge rectum, and they have difficulty in completely evacuating their bowel. So there is a stool available, a U-shaped stool. It's available in India as well on Amazon. That can be used in a Western toilet to achieve the optimal angle between the rectum and the anus. And the digestive bitters, like I said, there are some herbs which can naturally stimulate your digestive enzymes, especially when you have bloating and indigestion and you not feeling your moving your bowel properly. These digestive enzymes, one popular one in India which I recommend is called kalmeg bitters. It's a combination of moringa leaves and kalmeg leaves, and it's fermented. So it not just stimulates the digestive enzymes, but also it feeds the good bacteria. And finally, a very important thing is making sure the vagus nerve is acting fine. I've seen some of the patients who have very bad GID. All the functional tests are normal. We do a pH manometry, it's normal. We do an esophageal muscle study, it's normal. We put an endoscope and see it's normal. And we do studies inside the stomach, it's all normal. But they just don't recover with regular treatments. They get dependent on acid suppressing drugs, but we end up not having a proper diagnosis for them. Such patients I've seen have responded just for vagal nerve exercises. No medicines, no treatment, just simple vagal nerve exercises. So what exactly are vagal nerve exercises is, vagus actually passes, it's coming out from the brain and passes through the face and the neck and goes into the chest and then the abdomen. So wherever it is going through and supplying branches, we need to stimulate those muscles. Then the vagus nerve gets stimulated. So in the face, it is giving muscles to the cheek muscles and to the back of the throat. So oil pulling and gargling in the morning will help. And when you go down, it supplies the lungs and the diaphragm. So diaphragmatic breathing and humming and chanting and pranayama and breathing exercises will help the vagus nerve. And it's also important to not do very fast exercises or aggressive exercises. You need to do slow exercises and calming exercises to stimulate the vagus nerve. And when you go down, it again supplies the entire GI tract. So even humming and singing also will stimulate the vagus nerve. So these simple exercises, I can send you a link with all the vagus nerve exercises after this session. So it may seem so simple, but it actually improves the gut health to a great extent. So I want you to recollect all these and think of 3 things which will optimize your digestion from today. Thank you so much.